You mentioned Nigel Farage. He is in the papers today, though. He's in the Mail.
Yes.
Talking about stripping pensions from civil servants who... now, does he use the word knowingly let in foreign rapists?
Yes, that's right. So effectively, Reform's announcing plans to create a new offence, which it will say can enable civil servants who kind of knowingly allow migrant sex offenders who apply for asylum in the UK and then go on to commit crimes to be prosecuted for that.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it.
Now, this is part of their big sort of programme for government. It's been dreamed up by Zia Youssef, the new head of policy, and it's designed to be a signal, obviously, to the sort of base of the Reform Party, who, sort of don't like civil servants very much and sort of all think that they're the blob, the sort of wokey, liberal, lefty types in the Home Office. But it's also obviously designed to try and counter this perception that there are, an increasing number of sort of migrant sex offenders in the UK, people who are being allowed here with a criminal background and record, who effectively there should be red flags enough about to prevent them being able to come here in the first place. It would probably be quite difficult to enforce this kind of law. I mean, how could a civil servant sort of necessarily know what somebody was going to go on and do once they arrived in the UK? So it will raise questions again about how much Reform's policy is, sort of interesting sounding on the one hand, but deliverable on the other. And it will obviously drive people potentially away from joining the civil service. If potential people who want to be public servants think that they could be prosecuted for well-meaning decisions that are by the book, in that they are following the law and they're not doing anything wrong because they're allowed to make these decisions, then it raises questions about how much Reform is trying to dissuade people from joining the civil service that it doesn't like in the first place.
How popular... Well, obviously, this policy could potentially be popular with the Reform base, as you say, but how realistic do you think it can be to implement it? Because you've just pointed out so many problems with the policy in terms of, putting off civil servants or potential civil servants and joining the Home Office. Yeah,
it will be really difficult. And, I mean, we haven't really heard from Reform too much about how much it wants to potentially politicise the civil service. I think that is probably a bigger question here. It's talked about, for example, making many more people peers to make them cabinet ministers. It doesn't like the idea that MPs, i.e. our democratically elected representatives, are sort of having their time taken up by doing both constituency business and big matters of state. And so it wants to sort of change the structure of government quite fundamentally, and that's just on the ministerial side. There are questions about whether Reform wants to sort of ape or emulate about a lot of what goes on in the US, where the civil service, the sort of officials that run the thing, that are meant to be apolitical and ensure that it can serve a government of any colour. I suspect that Reform is trying to make a sort of broader point here about the types of people that it wants to work in the civil service, which is quite fundamentally changing almost our unwritten constitution and the way in which governance is delivered in this country.
Indeed. I mean, a Home Office whistleblower claimed that staff approve claims from migrants accused of crimes if the potential sentence is less than 12 months, something that they have denied, and yet a whistleblower has come out and said that.
Absolutely. And, I mean, there will undoubtedly be instances, including some very high-profile ones, of people who committed crimes, including sexual offences in the country in which they were born or resided in, and then come to the UK, and people will say, this is a really bad look, why did you grant this person asylum? But again, there's always that question about how can you sort of necessarily guard against an official approving something in good faith, maybe about a conviction that happened a long time ago, and maybe that it was in a country where those charges could have been kind of spuriously brought against them. There are always going to be those questions about how this policy can be delivered.
Exactly that, because I was just about to say the problem is that, yes, if you're being prosecuted in a particular country where it is not known for upholding the law, then you do wonder if some of them have been deliberately targeted as well. Aubrey Allegretti, thank you very much, Chief Political Correspondent of The Times.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 73% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 73% off ExpressVPN plus 4 extra months free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Angola and Namibia are preparing to accept the return of illegal migrants and criminals following pressure from the UK government.
This move comes just weeks after the Home Secretary threatened to suspend visas for countries that refuse to cooperate with deportation processes.
Yes, earlier this year, Shabana Mahmood issued a rare warning to Angola, Namibia and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, giving them a month to improve their returns procedures or face visa penalties.
Joining us now is human rights lawyer David Haig. Your thoughts on this, first of all, David?
Hi, good morning to you both. Well, I think, it's a small amount of positive news for Shabana Mahmood. And I think, it's tiny numbers. And I think there might be some confusion with your viewers and your readers to what this actually means. This has nothing to do really with people coming across the channel. It doesn't mean they're going to be able to be sent to a different country for processing. This means essentially a number of people from those countries that are already here, failed asylum seekers, overstayers, will be able to be sent back a little bit easier than they are at the moment. So nothing in terms of big numbers, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
And yet, David, the Democratic Republic of the Congo appears to have refused to cooperate on its repatriation process, which means their VIPs are going to have their visas altered, essentially. It's not going to be as easy for them to get to Britain.
Yeah, I thought that was a slightly curious way of kind of bringing in a penalty on a country, saying that the VIPs won't be able to come in quite as quick, but they can still come in. I think we need to get tougher on that. I think you need to basically ban visas from a country if they're not complying, if they're not taking back people that they should be taking back. Ban the visas until they do. I think we need to be a bit tougher on that, and perhaps Shabana Mahmood will get there.
I'm slightly confused in the fact that I thought legally people had to take back people who were, citizens of their countries who were not wanted in a country to which they had gone.
Well, you would think so, Penny, and I think that's I think one of the problems when the government sends out things. I mean, this is clearly quite a Christmas headline heist, if you like. It's Shabana Mahmood trying to get some Christmas headlines for herself over immigration. I think what the government needs to do when they release stories like this is make it clear what country it relates to, what the numbers are in terms of people that may or may not be going back, what the changes have been. A simple fact sheet. Of course, they're not going to do that because in this case, when you're looking at asylum seekers from these countries, you're probably looking about 10 or 20 in the last few years. It's tiny. If you're looking at overstayers, figures hard, but a couple of thousand. So it's tiny numbers. But I think that would be a good step for the government to share the actual numbers and what it means. Like you said, Penny, a lot of people will be quite probably not sure what this means.
David, you say that, of course, the Home Secretary is trying to get Christmas headlines. How much of a difference do you think this alteration is actually going to make in practice? Because, as you say, it's not really about the small boats crisis, really.
Well, it's not. I mean, they say that the reason for return deals like this, they say, is apparently deterrent, that people won't overstay because they know it'll be easier for them to be sent back. Is that really a deterrent? I mean, I personally don't think it is. I suppose it's an individual case. So, to speed up relations. And one of the other good positives that you get with this, but again, because we don't have many asylum seekers, I think, coming from these countries, is that you have better communications between the governments. But again, I don't think that's a problem. Now, if it was somewhere like, for instance, Iran, Afghanistan, Sudan, then I think we should be jumping up and down with joy, because I think that would be a fantastic achievement by the government. It's not.
Yes, I'm confused also. I've spent quite a lot of my time being confused, David, by people who claim asylum here and then go on holiday to the place where they've escaped from because they can no longer live there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that quite rightly, I think Shabab Mahmood is cracking down on. So when people come here, you pick any country, say someone's come from a Middle Eastern country where they generally at the time their lives may have been risked. They'll come here. Generally, it used to be, say, 5 years. They wouldn't be able to go back. Obviously, they'll have families back there, but the point of asylum is that they are coming to save their lives. They are really at risk. So they shouldn't be able to go back. And I think, that, and as a human rights lawyer, what I want to see is an effective asylum system. But someone coming here, claiming asylum, and then be able to go back home for a holiday in a couple of years, then their lives, you would argue, perhaps weren't quite as at risk as they said they were.
David, do you ever see a situation where a similar deal is done with countries such as Afghanistan, where, the rate of illegal migrants is far higher than those from Namibia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Angola? Because you say it's just 0.1% of UK visas are issues for those three countries.
I think we've obviously had big deals when you look at, for instance, India as an example, places like that. But then, are they effective? And that's the thing. I mean, really, I think when it comes to deals, it's all right announcing deals and having deals, but we need to see how they work in practice. We've got a raft of new legislation coming in, from Shabab Mahmood, and will be put into practice next year. We need to see how that's going to work. I think there are going to be some struggles along the way with various courts, various international bodies. So I think, yes, they can work if all the parties want them to, but that's the thing. Where are the interests? Our interest is obviously getting people out of our country that shouldn't be here, with foreign prisoners that have done things that we can't get rid of. These are our interests, but they're not in line always with the interests of the other countries who probably don't want them back.
David, thank you very much. David Haig, human rights lawyer there.
Thank you.